Good evening and welcome to the Henry Schein Dental Academy webinar series. My name is Adam and I'll be your moderator. I'd like to welcome back Cindy Bickers as our speaker, as she'll be discussing laying the groundwork to starting an exceptional dental career. Cindy is the manager with Henry Schein Dental Recruitment Services. At any point during the webinar, if you have a question, please type it into the Q&A section of your control panel and we'll get back to you with an answer in 2 business days. And Henry Schein is not offering CE credit for viewing or attending this presentation live or on demand. Cindy, thanks for coming back.
All right, thank you, Adam. Hello, everyone. I've been placing dentists in dental practices across the country for almost 20 years now. And during the time, I've seen many changes in the dental business. I know we think that probably the last 2 years, though, I've seen the most drastic change. But I've learned a few things after helping so many practices and associates, get together. So I hope to share just a little bit of information with you to help you begin your associate career as we live with this new normal. You just want to be prepared when you find the right opportunity when it comes along for you. So we're going to basically cover 4 discussion topics. First is how and where to begin your search, and then what makes certain practices well suited to support an associate, what to look for in an employment agreement, and is your plan to own a practice in the future. So you want to be ready for all of those things. An associateship is probably the best way to start your dental career. Like I said, we've helped many dentists start their careers, and a lot of dentists coming out of dental school or residencies, that's where they began with an associateship. And the benefits are that you're going to be paid for doing dentistry, which you love. That's why you're doing it. You have a chance to enhance your clinical skills. You get on-the-job training, like a general practice residency. It's right there on the job. And then you have someone to mentor you in a real practice environment. We all know that the dental business has changed, like I said, over the past couple of years, and it's mainly because of the COVID-19. And the landscape, it continues to evolve. So as we're, coming out of all this, or starting to, things starting to change a little bit. The COVID-19 caused employment to be a problem for dental practices, as it has for many other companies, with practices either being closed for a few months or just treating emergencies only. It caused a deep decline in productivity that affected practice revenue for some. And many of the dentist owners decided to sell because of the decline, and some even sold because of health concerns. But as dentistry recovers, and it's recovering better than many other businesses, now the employment problem has changed to reflect a shortage of employees in some cases. So I wanted to show you the number of associate opportunities and how it's changed over the past 5 years just for our business. As you see, the number in 2021 is much higher than any of the past 5 years. That gives you a greater freedom to choose the best opportunity for you, because that obviously means there are more opportunities out there. And today you still have a lot of opportunities, a lot of choices. You have the individual dentist or the sole proprietor who is still hiring. You have the partnerships or the small groups, which they seem to be growing. You have the small group networks, which are like the 3 to 20 or 30 practices. And then obviously you have the corporately owned, like the DSOs with the 500 plus practices across the country. So with that being said, you have lots of practice opportunities to choose from, lots of practice types. I think we need to begin, though, with you determining your goals. For you to decide where you want to be and how you see your future is important when you start. You want to know where you're planning to end up. So before you consider any position, put together some detailed personal goals, and that's going to help you, decide where it is that you want to go. Where do you see yourself in the future? That's what you want to think of first and foremost, and determine what's important to you. Think about the difference between your short-term and your long-term goals, because they probably are very different. Identify the practice type that works for you. Again, choosing from those practice types we just talked about, will you or should you only consider an opportunity that might lead to ownership if that's your plan? If you are looking for an opportunity with some ownership, you want to think about how long it would be before you want to own, because that's going to make a difference in the type of position as well. Practice owners are all different. So some want to sell right away within a couple of months. Some may want to sell in 5 years. So think about what it is that's going to work best for you. And then when you choose your priorities and be honest with yourself. Is this just an interim position? Is this just something that you're going to do to get started because, your intentions are to move in a different location, so you're going to move out of that area, or is this where you're planning to stay and set your roots? This is going to help you plan for your future as well. So to summarize, the reason for an associateship usually falls in about 4 categories. First is I need some serious cash. I need to pay off my student loans. Another is to gain some clinical experience and or business knowledge. Third is, again, if you want to own a practice, but just not right now, or it could be a combination of any of those things. But once you've determined the categories that are important to you, you can more clearly identify the goals and purpose of the associateship that you need. If you join a practice, it's critical that the practice owners or corporate objectives and expectations are compatible with yours. You need for those 2 things to come together. So do your best to learn what the employer's objectives are so you can have a meeting of the minds on that. Where do you want to live? That's the number 1 reason for accepting a position today. But be careful, because where you plan to live and establish roots, it should be considered carefully. Most associate positions have a no-compete clause written in them, or the employment agreements have a no-compete clause written in them for the associate position. So that no-compete will prohibit you from practicing in certain areas. So you want to be sure that if you're starting to practice now, what is the no-compete in that agreement so that you can plan your future based on that? Again, what will your immediate income needs be? How much money do you need to live? How will you know if the offered compensation meets your needs? So they're going to tell you that they're going to give you this amount of money or salary or percentage, but is that going to cover your expenses? So your first step in seeking any position is a carefully prepared personal projected budget. So start your personal financial needs estimate with an income and expense statement. Okay, so you want to determine your monthly living expenses. You know what they are now. You want to look at what they will be when you start working, because they may change depending on, if you move to a different place, if you've got commuting, whatever the case might be, your living expenses may change. So you want to come up with what they will be when you start the position, or what they should be when you start the position. And then add, of course, your regular, like personal loans, any kind of, auto loan, anything that you might have that is just a constant. Add that to that, and then that'll tell you what you need. And that's going to help you determine if the new position is going to sustain you. So the bottom line is still the bottom line. If all other considerations relative to any specific opportunity versus your other goals or priorities aside, the bottom line is, like I said, the bottom line. If the offered opportunity does not meet your income needs, so if it doesn't cover your expenses to make this work, you're going to need to have a second position or a second income. Most clearly and definitely need to come up with your financial needs, and you need to know this to help you make a sound decision. So now that you have your goals planned and you understand your priorities, you're ready to start your search. So careful planning and an early start will result in the best outcome. And the biggest mistake that we see dentists make is not starting the process early enough. Give yourself time. Give yourself time to pick the actual opportunity that's best for you. If you're just seeking an associate position, you just want to work somewhere, 6 to 12 months before you're available for employment is the ideal time to begin your search. So if you are an upcoming 2022 graduate or coming out of a residency in 2022, if you haven't started, you should start now. However, if your desired intention is future ownership, you should start looking 1 to 2 years before you begin your associateship, especially, like I said, if your plan is to return to your home geographic location. You have to keep that no compete in mind. As a candidate beginning your search, you need to use as many resources as possible. There's really no one best source. I mean, I would like to say that a recruiter is the best because that's what we do, which we're good, but you need to use every resource possible. Be organized when you start your search. Keep track of your introductions. You want to keep one employer in practice and use them as, or consider them as one source. So keep track of the opportunities you apply to with a copy of your cover letter and your CV that you submitted for each one. If you're contacted for an interview or have any communications with any of those folks, you want to track that as well. And this is going to help you if you keep good notes and files on each practice, because what we see is many times a candidate for an associate position speaks with a potential employer, and if they're talking to a lot of them at the same time, they may not remember, or they haven't kept good records of what communications they've had, and then they unfortunately say things to people that they shouldn't probably say, because it may not even be the same opportunity or the same practice. So it's confusing, and if you're doing a lot of it, it can be very confusing. So just keep good records and keep track of everything. So here's a list, or a chart basically, that gives you an overview of the advantages and disadvantages of using different resources. You've got the dental school career offices, which like most all of them have one. And that's the advantage to that, is that they're most often, if they come there looking for someone, they're looking for a new dentist, someone that's just coming out of dental school or residency. The only issue with that is that the geography of the locations may be limited. And it's harder to differentiate yourself because you're in the same school as everyone else that's there with you, that's seeing the same opportunity, or maybe applying to the same opportunity. You've got social media, which everyone uses social media for everything now. So you can try to use that for a job search as well. It can reach a larger audience, which is an advantage, but then you may be sharing your social media presence with a potential employer, which you have to, be careful of that. You've got the state dental associations. The opportunities there are more localized. Obviously, they're within that state, and if you're looking to move out to another state, you're gonna need something other than that. And again, it's geographically limited. The local dental groups, the opportunities are more localized. So if you're looking in one specific area, that might be helpful. But if you're looking outside of their area, again, it may not be as helpful. You have the dental job boards, which is an active job search. You can keep that going as much as or long as you like. The disadvantages to that is that it's basically online. There's no screening, no support. It's more competitive. So you're just checking out the jobs like everybody else that's on the job board. You have the trade publication ads, and that again is an active job search. But again, there's no screening or support. You just look at the ad, and it's up to you to reach out. You have word of mouth, which obviously you've got friends and colleagues and all that may help you. And that gives you an exclusive, opportunity, and that might be an in for you with somebody that you actually know and personally. But then there are going to be fewer opportunities that way, obviously. Then you've got the dental recruiters like us, and we have some exclusive opportunities that our customers share with us. We screen our leads. We give you support through the search. And we have a potentially broader geographic coverage because we work all across the country. So we're a full service recruiter, and typically recruiters don't charge any fees to their candidates or someone that's looking. That's, most often. Recruiters often have exclusive opportunities. Many times I work with practice owners who choose to replace an associate for some reason, or the practice owner hasn't told their staff that they're considering hiring an associate. So they may want to keep their search confidential, and they don't want to just put an ad out on a job board or on the internet, or even let someone in the area know that they're looking, because they don't want the word to get passed around. Recruiters take the legwork out of searching for you as an associate, and then we make it easier for the employer as well. And this increases the chance of finding the right opportunity. Normally, when it comes to negotiating a contract, we're here to help you with that. We can work as a mediator between both the candidate or the associate and the employer. And so when you start working together, there's no animosity from discussing an agreement. You've basically just started together from scratch. The associate placement companies specialize in finding jobs for dentists. And these companies are used by all levels of practice owners, from the sole practitioner to the big DSO groups. Practice owner uses a placement company because recruiting takes a lot of time and resources that they simply don't have. They're too busy. That's the whole reason that they're looking for an associate. They need help. So you want to learn the following about any opportunity before you decide if you want to apply or you should apply. What type of opportunity is being offered? Is it part-time or full-time? And I can tell you that I'm seeing a lot of part-time opportunities because of, I think, my opinion, I'm not sure, but I think because of the COVID-19. What experience level do they require? So you want to know if you're going to be eligible for them to consider. Are they open to someone with your experience? What is the compensation structure? Some practices may not offer this information until the interview process. So, just hold on to that for a minute. Will it lead to ownership or a partnership, if that's your goal, again? And if needed, will the practice sponsor a visa? Because I know that we have candidates, associates that need some sort of visa sponsorship, and the practice has to be willing to do that. Okay, so you're going to need tools to find a job, just like you need tools for any task. So spend some time gathering the items you need to help you. The tools you need is an updated curriculum vitae or CV. You need a cover letter, and that's for each opportunity. You don't want one cover letter for every opportunity. Your references, and again, the list of resources that you're going to use and how to keep track of everything. So I think everybody understands the purpose of a reference. We all know what the reference is for. It's, basically for a potential employer to learn something from somebody that actually knows you personally, or someone that knows about your, skills, your qualifications. And normally 3 or 4 references are acceptable, though you may want to have more available. You might want to give a brief description of any skill or project that relates to dentistry that your reference can verify for you. So if you work together, maybe you had a residency together and you actually spent some time, practicing together, that's someone that you might be able to use as a reference. Somebody that can test your abilities and your characteristics. Written references may be good to include with your CV. They may pique an interest in you. It's best to offer verbal references only to a prospective employer who wants to interview you. So if you've got like some reference letters or whatever, you can include those with your CV if you wish, if you're comfortable with that. But to offer anybody's name and contact information, references, name and contact information, you may want to do that after you have an interview or at an interview. Someone that you actually speak with directly and you feel like that there's a reason to share that so you can move to the next level. You just don't want to share that a reference's name and phone number, this is my opinion, or contact information on your CV so that you share it with every single person that you send it out to. You obviously want to be courteous to your references. Okay. And then usually they want to know if there's a relationship, what your relationship is to that reference. So when you create this list of references, be sure to check with the people that you're going to put on there to make sure that it's okay that you share their information. And if if you're doing a lot of searching, you may want to rotate them around so as not to burden anyone in particular. And always be sure to follow up with a thank you to your reference, whether it be a phone call or a nice handwritten note. Just tell them, thanks for helping you out. And keep in touch with your references. So if they decide that they don't want to be contacted, you can remove them from your list. Many employers check the candidate's social media as part of their due diligence now. I mean, everybody's looking at social media. So one of the big things that they do is to look at the social media to see what they can learn about you before they decide to interview. So remove any questionable posts or anything that might be on there that would be, something that a potential employer may not be, happy seeing, I guess you might say. I don't really know how to explain what it would be, but you should, what a potential employer is looking for and what's going to look professional and what's not. So remove anything that doesn't look like it would be something that would be, interesting to a potential employer. Do that before you start applying. Check your social media before you apply and plan ahead so that you know that all that's removed. In today's environment, you just have to be careful because we've all heard the horror stories. I'm sure everybody's heard that somebody had an employer offer a position, or they had a job, whatever the case might be, and then the employer checks out their social media and then they have some kind of an issue. So nobody wants that. So now say you found this good opportunity, perfect opportunity, and you're ready to interview with them, ready to go to the next step. So just as you prepared your curriculum vitae, a good cover letter, and your references, you should prepare for the interview. So we're going to talk about the pre-interview, which is basically you want to study the practice, visit their website to learn about their mission statement, their philosophy, maybe their management style, even community activities. A lot of websites post on there what they do, what their involvement is in the community. And then Google the owners and the principals of the corporation. And then again, you want to search social media as well to see what you can learn about the practice. You want to prepare questions to ask the employer and show that you've researched them and that you know about them. At the initial interview, you don't want to ask about salary or benefits or vacation. We hear from practice owners, hiring managers all the time that candidates come into the interview. That's the first thing they ask, and immediately the practice owner feels like that the person's not interested in their practice, their patients, their future, anything that's going to involve the practice, that their only concern is their income. And honestly, we hear from practice owners all the time that that's not what they want. They want someone that's going to come into the practice that wants to take care of their patients and treat their staff and everyone well. So please keep that in mind. And also you want to understand that you're interviewing the prospective employer too. So as they're interviewing you, you should be interviewing them. And you want to listen to the answers that they give you, because this is going to give you great insight into the employer's intentions for the future. Prepare to ask questions about yourself, or answer questions about yourself, your strengths and weaknesses, your career goals, and your priorities. Set yourself apart without being aggressive. Tell the interviewer how you will enhance their practice, how you're going to help them. That's what they're looking for. And be confident, but not arrogant. Be career oriented instead of job oriented. So with the virtual interviews now, you need to be more careful than ever about getting distracted. Stay focused on the person who is interviewing you. And be careful with the background noise. And then hopefully you'll get to the next stage and you will be able to interview personally. But you got to get past that virtual interview. So before accepting an offer, there are many points that you should discuss to set the stage for a successful associateship, because you've gone through the process of finding something. You have a good opportunity that you're hoping to get or be offered. And so you want to prepare for that. So one of the things you need to know is, will the practice support an additional dentist? Is there a plan to make that work? If the practice owner doesn't have enough patients, are they going to start advertising, marketing to bring those patients in? There should be at least 1,800 active patients in the practice when you come in, because you're going to need probably about 700-800 patients of your own. And that's patients based on a 12-month recall or an 18-month recall, not just patient charts, because some practices have thousands and thousands of charts. Did an associate leave the practice recently? And if so, why did they leave? That's something you might want to know, because that might give you some insight. So does the office space accommodate another dentist? They may have the patients and the patient base, but are they going to have room for you? Are you going to have to share operatories with the practice owner? And if you do, how's that going to work? Will you have to work different days than the practice owner works? Will you split days? You know, what is the plan for that? Will the equipment need to be updated? So perhaps they have an operatory that's sitting empty. They've never equipped because they didn't have a need to. So when is that going to happen, or is that the plan? The reason you want to ask that is because, or you want to know that is because if you have one chair to work out of and you're paid on production or a percentage of production or collections, one chair per month equals to about $15,000 to $20,000 in production revenue. And this is just the numbers I'm throwing out there. If you want to increase that production, then you need an additional chair to work out of. So to increase your income, you need to be able to produce more. Okay. The other thing that you're looking for is, is the practice grossing $900,000 plus a year? Is it well established? Is it bringing in about 25 new patients a month? Okay, that's some things you want to look for too. Are there any procedures that the associate needs to perform based on the patients? Like, I see practices coming in here all the time that have a lot of children in the practice. So, you know, are you good with working with children, pediatric, dentistry? Some practices do a lot of implants, some do extractions. Is there something that that you would really need to do to work in the practice and make it successful? Are there any additional procedures that the associate should perform that would aid in the growth of the practice? So maybe the practice doesn't do some of these things, or the practice owner doesn't do some of these things, but they'd like to add them, things that they're referring out, to bring them back into the practice and help build it. Do they have enough staff to support another dentist? How many hygienists do they have? How many dental assistants do they have? Will you be working with an experienced dental assistant if you come into the practice, or are they planning to hire someone for the new associate? It's always best, if you can, to have an experienced dental assistant to work with, because the assistant knows the practice, they know the policies, the procedures, and the philosophy of the practice owner. And that's going to give you a lot of insight. Compensation. And when you get to that point of discussing compensation, like I said, you don't want to bring it up at the initial interview, but at some point that's something you'll have to discuss, so you can go back to making a decision on whether this is going to work. The typical compensation structure right now is either being paid a percentage of collections or production, and that's of the dentistry that you produce or you provide for the practice. Will you be paid a draw or a guarantee? Because some practices offer some sort of a guaranteed amount or the percentage. A typical guarantee right now for a general dentist is $120,000 to $150,000 per year. And for a specialist, it's $175,000 to $200,000 per year. Now, if you're given a draw and a guarantee are a little different, because if you're given a draw amount, that is basically like they're giving you money that you will pay back through your production. So it's kind of giving you the money up front, then it'll be deducted from your compensation once they calculate the percentage of the production or the collections, whichever way you're paid. A guaranteed amount usually is just a straight out guarantee or a salary. And then if you are paid a guarantee or the percentage, you usually get whichever is greater, either or. Most often you want to wait and talk about compensation when the employer brings up that conversation, and they will. Obviously, they want to tell you how they're planning on paying you, so you'll have that conversation. Here is an example of what I was talking about. Say you produced or collected $40,000 for the month, and you're paid a 30% commission on that. That generates $12,000 in monthly income. And if the employer has already given you $8,000 as a guarantee or a draw, then you're going to have a $4,000 bonus that you earn at the end of that month. So that's just to give you an example of how that works. Lab fees. You want to know who's going to pay the lab fees, because that does make a difference on your compensation as well. If the owner deducts the lab fees from your gross collections or production, or if they deduct the lab fees from your net collections or production, makes a difference. And I'll show you a little bit how it works. If it's deducted from your gross collections, then you are paying a percentage. Whatever percentage they're paying you, you're paying in lab fees. So if they're paying you 30%, you're paying 30% of the lab. If it's deducted from your net collections, that means that your bottom line, then they deduct the lab fees. So that means you're paying 100% of the lab fees. That's the difference. You also want to know about benefits. Is there any health insurance being offered? If so, some practices I see offer to pay all of it, some pay part of it. You'll want to know that. I mean, health insurance is a big thing nowadays. Everybody needs it. Does the practice provide for any kind of vacation pay, personal time? And most often that time is based on just an hourly rate or a daily rate. If you're paid a percentage of whatever you produce, it's just easier most often to just pay a regular flat rate for time off. Some practices also offer assistance with student loan repayment, reimbursement of relocation expenses or allowance, and then continuing education course reimbursement. So you want to get together, have your interviews, hopefully you have more than one, and agree on everything pretty much verbally. Everything that you would want in an employment agreement, the two of you should negotiate or have someone help you negotiate, and then come up with a plan. But then once you've done that, you want to have everything put in writing. It's going to be beneficial for both parties. It's going to eliminate any or many disputes, not every dispute, but many. You want an employment agreement, you want to have an attorney either prepare it or review it. And it would be best if the attorney has some knowledge of the dental business, because the dental business is different than most others. So if you move on to the next level, say you've got an associateship, but you want to really own a practice. What you want to do and try to learn while you're working in the practice as the associate is the business of dentistry, or the business basics, period. That's only going to help you. Understanding the various components necessary to operate the business side of a dental practice is going to be the best indicator of future success as a partner. So learn what you can about how they run the business, not just doing dentistry. A partnership or transition is a relationship. It's just like any other relationship. So you want to make sure that your skills and the owner's skills either are similar, or that they work together, that they complement each other. And then also that your personalities don't conflict. You're going to work with this person. You want to make sure that you get along well. The philosophy, obviously, like I said, you want to make sure that you're on the same page as far as how you look at the practice, how you look at patients, Some practice owners look at the practice as a business where they make money, and the more patients they can treat, the better, their business is. Some practice owners, that's not as important to them. They want to, if it, takes a lot longer to treat a patient and the patient's happy with their dentistry, that's all that matters to them. So it's just, different people have different ideas about how to run a business, just like any business. And then the willingness for them to transition. If that's their goal, to transition ownership of the practice, you want to make sure that you have, you're on the same page there, and you have the same plans. It's just not good to have someone come into the practice with an idea that they want to transition a practice or have an ownership of a practice or a partnership in a practice at a certain time, and the owner is nowhere close to the same mindset. So you can have a letter of intent that'll help you with some of these things if you're gonna buy into the practice. A letter of intent is not always binding, but it can at least lay out the plan for you. Okay. You want to make sure that you've got the sale of the practice, the sale date of the practice, when that transition is going to happen. You want to make sure that you have that listed. You want to have the sales price of the practice listed, because obviously you don't want to surprise that, you've agreed to buy the practice, this amount, and then when the time happens, the amount's changed. That's probably not going to work out. And what we've learned is, if the practice purchase price is not determined at the onset of the associateship, and that's their plan to buy the practice, many times that transition fails because there has not been that meeting of the minds from the very beginning. So make sure that's very important. The exit strategy for the practice owner, you kind of want to know what their intention is. Are they going to just cut down a few days a week for a few years? They're going to cut down to 1 day a week for a few years? Are they going to just walk out when the time comes? Whatever the plan is, you want to know what that is too. And then obviously, if you're going to have a partnership or you're going to work with somebody in an ownership situation, you want to know how the income and the revenue is going to be divided. I talk to practice owners that have partnerships or whatever, and they feel, some of them feel that they put much more into the practice. They produce more for the practice. They manage more of the practice, but they have an agreement to share the income equally. So just make sure you have an agreement on how that's going to be done. And again, just like the employment agreement, come together on everything you want to do, but then get it all in writing. And be sure to thoroughly understand the documents you're signing, because this is going to impact your future. A practice broker or transition specialist could help you through the process, just like our Henry Schein Professional Practice Transitions Group. Okay, so here's a little bit about us. We are the recruitment service for Henry Schein. We're a full service associate recruitment and placement business. We don't charge anything to a candidate or an associate, potential associate that's looking for an opportunity. There's no fees to you. We have practice listings nationwide. We have positions for general dentists and specialists, and we do offer you guidance through the process, like I talked about. We can assist where we're needed. If you need some help with interview questions, with your CV, whatever, we're here to help you. We match candidates and practices to make a win-win situation for both. We have a very high rate of success, and we work confidentially. So if you have someone that you want to avoid, if you're employed, you don't want your employer to know that you happen to be looking, we are careful with the confidentiality of all of our candidates and employers. So here's my contact information, our contact information. If you have any questions, or if we may be of service to you at all, looking for an opportunity, please contact us. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. And as we end 2021, we want to wish you and your family health and safety during the holidays and the year to come.
Thanks, Cindy, for another terrific webinar. As a thank you for attending, everyone will receive the recording of this webinar via email sometime in the next week. For more Henry Schein webinars, visit henryscheindental.com/webinars for our upcoming schedule. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at webinars@henryschein.com. Thanks for joining. Have a great night.